All right, hey, this is Shooter Jennings and this is Reverb.com, and I'm here to discuss weird synthesizers that are very out of date. Well, the DX-7, but also talk about what we did on the record and stuff. My new record's a tribute to Giorgio, and I was starting to get obsessed with the sounds that he got back in the 80s. And I had actually done some research into the Top Gun soundtrack because I really wanted to know how you come about making a song like Danger Zone. The first thing that I did was the DX-7 was just all over the place in all these Giorgio records and in all these 80s records that were, and it's kind of become like very uncool to use the DX-7. So first thing I did was bought a DX-7, you know, and it's like my baby. I do everything on it. I use it as a controller and everything. And instead, here at Reverb, they didn't have the DX-7. They have this crazy module that has 5 DX-7 brains in it, I guess. And so we've wired that up to get all the sounds off that. So I'm having fun with that. And I've also got a MiniMoog Voyager here that I also have. We've kind of got a little mini rig of what I did a lot of my record here. We're gonna try to get into that, and I'll explain to you why I like the DX-7 so much. This patch specifically is on Love Kills, the song that was originally done by Freddie Mercury and Giorgio. And there's a whole middle bridge to that song. The way that Freddie's lyrics were, it just wasn't like my style to do it, so I just completely wrote a new bridge to the song and put it in there, and it's got this whole... You know, and it just kind of goes over and over. And I was like, when I was in the middle of that song, I was thinking of this patch and this keyboard, and I'm like, in that moment, it was like the big 80s movie moment, you know, and it was kind of like pounding that through. That song itself, Love Kills, I did all without a live band. That was all done at home, and I used the DX-7 for that part of it. I used the DX-7 for the bass that's on that we found a minute ago that was on Danger Zone. I wish I could remember. It's something like that in the very beginning. It starts. It's also on a bunch of the Cyndi Lauper records too. Like that thing, that's in there a little bit, but it didn't have enough thump. So I used one of these, like a low oscillator, as the bass for it, and programmed it. So I would kind of mix them. Everybody uses Mellotrons. It's like 70s equipment. Everybody kind of goes after that Beatlesy sound, and to me, that's like overdone as hell. Like so going in and using these blatantly 80s like kind of strings and horns and things that just sounded so crazy. It was immediately reminiscent of a period of time, and I think if I gone after string patches or things like that, it would have been far less interesting and probably more generic, you know what I mean? And anytime I would use like this or patches that are oscillators, it would be to do stuff like, that's what we were talking about, like the Blade Runner. And always do all that stuff, which I loved growing up too, which is all in the same kind of era and vein. And if I had something that was kind of going down here, and then you could like they kind of, and this one hovers around this. Now I get like 3 or 4 of these going, and one's bending from above and one's bending from below, and they kind of create this like howl. It's almost like wind, and you just keep adding them, and it just becomes more and more chaotic, and then you can kind of use that as like an ambience around something that's really simple. Like even acoustic stuff that I've done in different records. There's a record I have that's coming out that I produced on a guy named Billy Don Burns that we recorded on a Tascam tape machine, in the hotel room that Graham Parsons died in. We had this like little Tascam Porta Studio. Like, what I wanted to do, instead of putting an accompaniment around it, I basically made a whole accompaniment, and then I made it, and then reduced it sonically to the sound of what it would sound like if it was on a TV that was next door really loud. So it's like you can't really hear it, but if you're listening in headphones, you can kind of hear stuff going on, and it's you know, really out there. But a lot of that would be like, it would be an acoustic song, and I'd be like just kind of like scooting around the notes, and it kind of gave just an eerie sense to, like, you know, the way it sounded. And again, you don't even really know it's there. That's my favorite thing to do. It's almost like I have to keep myself from doing on everything. Like that, if I would put up enough delay and enough verb, it would, like, say the arpeggiator was like, it would just become this like swell, so then I could like move up the notes, like, you know, and it kind of gives it this like unidentifiable like tone, and it's really just an arpeggiator with a bunch of delay and a bunch of reverb. Even with the Giorgio record that has a lot of electronic stuff going on, it's all recorded live on tape, except for the one Love Kills song. But everything else was done in the studio, full band, on tape, you know. And like the obvious thing for me to have done would have been to like not use synthesizers and go all like straight with the kind of original, with the Giorgio thing. And we had fiddle and we have stand-up bass, we have all that. But I also put in the synthesizers too, because it's that juxtaposition that I love so much. This is not a DX-7. This is a DX-7. Do not give up on the DX-7. In fact, as they just told me, they're skyrocketing in price as we speak. Old equipment is the greatest. And being here, being able to mess with this, I've never messed with this thing in my life. I've never even seen it. Didn't even know they had a rack mount. But, come on. We were born in the 80s and 90s. You get it. It's cool. Oh, yeah. Reverb.com.